have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard. Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum, and happy Independence Day. We're taping this the day before, and we're with a group of people who declared independence from the Heritage of Pride Parade and formed, through Reclaim Pride Coalition, the Queer Liberation March this year, and we're here to talk about it with... We have with us Bax Pitt, who is they're all Reclaim Pride organizers. Bax Pitt is a non-binary visual artist who designs lights and projections for plays and takes photos and makes videos and does graphic designs. And I have here Robert Baez, who is a PhD candidate in the Department of Sociology at the University of Florida, where he researches and teaches on sexualities, intersectionality, and social movements. Francesca Barjon is an organizer for the Reclaim Pride Coalition who cares about the liberation of all people and believes the most marginalized groups of people need to be heard from and fought for. You're also a writer and a mentor to high school students and a certified public accountant. I'll keep that in mind. And finally, a face that should be familiar to viewers of this show, Reginald Thomas Brown, who has a master's in education, who is a board member of Vocal New York. Now, you sent me your bio. We didn't talk about this stuff the last time we were together. You were a president of the Gay Liberation Front at the University of Kansas in 1971 when you were 19 and had to sue for funding for the group, and you used William Kunstler for that. Yep. Oh my goodness. Yep. You're a long-term HIV survivor of 33 years this August. You've been on the HASA Advisory Board, the National Minority AIDS Council, Building Leaders of Color program, and as I said, on the board. Well, first of all, I just want to say congratulations to everybody on this wonderful Reclaim Pride March, which our viewers have been hearing about for so long. It was 45,000 strong plus. Yes. Yeah. How did it feel?
It felt amazing. We were telling people to say they were coming on the Facebook event page, and it was showing maybe 2,000 people coming. So, especially towards the end, we were getting stressed. We were telling people, everyone, say you're coming, and it just goes to show people don't always say what they're going to do, even in this age of social media, but they showed up and they showed out, and it was amazing. Well,
I'll tell you what people do. I was down there in the morning, and it's 9:15, and there are about 1,000 people, and I'm going, shoot, is anybody going to come? I'm going to be happy anyway, because we're going to get to March, and then it just, boom, all these people showed up. Then there were blocks and blocks of people in the village, and many more in the park, many more as we moved. So, wow, other feelings about?
That was my impression, too. I was the parade march volunteer coordinator. So I was, people were calling to volunteer for the march. And when I got there at 7:15, we were unloading things. It was kind of quiet. And like I said, about 8:30, about 8:45, I'm thinking, oh my, I wonder if anybody's going to come. I said, my volunteers are here. They're all doing their things very efficiently. Is anybody going to come? And then a few minutes later, there were people all over the place, and I was having my volunteers direct them to go around to the back because they couldn't get any grocery because there's so many people there. I thought, wow. So I was really impressed with that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll keep talking, and we have footage of the march as it was just leaving the village. Can we run some of that, Monsieur le Directeur, of the people just marching as we're talking, let it rolling? Maybe not. We're working on it. All right. Well, we have B-roll of that as it was getting started. Mm-hmm. Other feelings?
I have the same feeling. I was there at about 8:30 and unsure about how many people were actually going to show up because we didn't require people to register. So we really had no idea the amount of people that would come. And so once I heard the number of 45,000, I was so excited and shocked. And all the hard work that paid off over the last few months was just really a great day overall.
Yeah, Bax?
Yeah, to echo what others have said, obviously you hope and you expect hope for the best, but I certainly wasn't expecting this. And in like the weeks and months leading up to it, in conversations on social media and just having conversations with people in my life, everyone was saying the same thing, which was, thank you for doing this, we're so excited, I can't wait. But we were obviously worried if the follow-through was going to be there. So it was a really incredible experience. And I know personally, I was sort of, as others have said, like down doing things the morning of. So I didn't really have a sense until, I don't know, maybe we were up at like 23rd Street or so, and I was able to get on top of something and get a little height. And suddenly like you see this crowd that just stretches like as far as your eye can see, and it was really breathtaking.
I mean, we should explain, Reclaim Pride's been going on for several years, and part of it is, Trump came in and we didn't want the parade to not acknowledge that we need a lot of politics and civil rights in our thing. And for the first year after the Trump election, they put a resistance group in the front, and then they wouldn't do that. And they stuck it in the middle or the back or whatever. But so that's and there was an effort.
I marched that year when Rise and Resist led it. Because of that, because of that message. That's why I wasn't really interested in the parade as such, but because of that message, I really wanted to be there because I held a sign that said LGBTQ lives matter. So that was why I was there.
I mean, 25 years ago for Stonewall 25, Heritage of Pride sort of stepped aside and said, yeah, have a more political march past the United Nations. There was at least some more flavor to it. And there was an alternative march that year as well.
I know that.
Yes, there was. That went up Fifth Avenue, not First Avenue.
Okay.
But were any of you involved in the negotiations with Heritage of Pride, World Pride, saying, hey, folks, do you see what's happening in the world? Why don't you do a more serious march? Any of you?
I wasn't. That was more like Ann and Jake and a couple of the other organizers. Yeah,
they kept doing the same thing, and it took forever.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't there through that process, but I could talk a little bit about it, and others can like jump in if I missing information there. But essentially, a lot of the demands that Reclaim Pride was asking for were things like not having corporations a part of the parade, not having cops march as well.
In uniform.
Right, not having wristbands, because at one point you had to wear a wristband in order to participate in the parade, which is totally counter to a people's political march, as we have been saying for the last few months. Barricades, right? So barricades was another way that kept the parade separate from the people, and so all of those things we were very countered, and so we tried to and successfully did that with the Queer Liberation March.
Right.
A good point was that I was at the end of the march because I was, making sure all the volunteers had what they needed. And there was one banner that was left, the AIDS is not over banner. And so 3 of us were carrying it, and I saw 6 other people that were walking along with us. And I said, would you like to carry this banner? And they were just so excited to come in, and some of them, this was their first march. And the fact that they were actually able to participate in this and get a feeling for what Pride was, and I said to them, it was people your age who were tired and decided to fight back. So you're actually carrying on a legacy here, and like the look on their faces, and they carried the banner all the way up to Central Park. But they came in off the street. That was the whole point, is they came in off the street.
And I wonder if anyone else had the same experience of, I saw so many people who were on the sidewalks cheering on, and then people in the crowd would say, come join us, get off of the sidewalks, get into the streets. And I saw dozens of people do exactly that. And suddenly, and it is because of, I think, the critical fight that we made to not have those barricades, because if those barricades are there, that action and the possibility of them joining becomes impossible.
Yeah, and
I think it's those people needed to be given permission. Like, they were taking pictures on their phones, and they're standing on the sidewalks, and it's like, no, come join us. And they were excited, and they came in. It was a really nice moment, because it was like, you don't just have to be a spectator. You can be part of this movement, and you can show up for this movement.
That's what I was saying to people. You'll have something to talk about with your grandchildren. Tell your grandchildren if you do this today. And it really involved everybody. I'm going to run a little clip here of a woman named Juanita Ramos, who was there towards the front of the parade. This is a veteran activist who decided to participate this year, and I've seen her at Hop Things, but this year she decided to join the Queer Liberation March. Can we run Juanita, please? Ramos, please. Why are you marching, Juanita Ramos?
I'm marching because I believe in human rights for every single human being, including lesbian and gay people. And I'm marching uptown because we need to let the world know that we're not fooled by the policies that say that we could get married and say that we could hold jobs, because that's only for a few people.
Okay.
And we need rights for everybody.
And how long have you been marching?
I've been marching since 1978.
I've known her for a long time. She worked in the coalition. It was tremendous. And it did attract a lot of, there were a lot of gray heads, you know, and there were a lot of young people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What did you see that day?
I mean, one of the people, as we were marching up, I was sort of at the front doing some media work, and I met somebody who was at the night of the Stonewall riots, and he was just expressing his gratitude and his excitement that all of this was happening, and he also participated in the Christopher Street Liberation Day, and so he was just going back and remembering those moments as well.
Right.
And so I think just the intergenerational activity that was happening at that march was definitely something special, because people who were a part of the movement so many decades ago were also collaborating with us younger folks, and I think that's a really exciting energy to have.
Many of whom had stopped marching, and I saw a whole group from the Gay Activist Alliance, including our associate producer, Bill Bauman, who's inside, but they marched they marched the whole way, if they could.
It's funny, I marched in the Pride Parade for 2 years, and my second year I remember looking at some corporations with the rainbows for the month of June and being like, this doesn't feel right. The first year was amazing that I marched, and it was like, oh, you're out, you're doing this. And then the second year was like, I don't see the value in it the same way that I did my first year. So I can imagine after decades of seeing what it's become, if you're an older person being like, this isn't what we started this march for, and now it's kind of just a big old party for these kids, for people nowadays. So I'm very grateful that they felt like our march was something that meant something and had value, and that they walked and marched in. So I'm really proud of that.
Right. We also we have a clip of Kelsey Louie. Now, he's the head of the Gay Men's Health Crisis, and it was difficult getting some of these mainstream groups to endorse in the beginning. But Kelsey gave this little brief comment about why he decided to march.
I am Kelsey Louie, the proud CEO of Gay Men's Health Crisis, and I'm marching at the Queer Liberation March to stand for all the people who are here and all the people whose lives matter.
And I'm sure a lot of these folks, did the Reclaim Pride Queer Liberation March and then went back and had to do the other one. Although I heard some of them had to stand on side streets for 6 hours in order to get out.
It didn't stop until 2:30 a.m.
Seriously?
I heard it was 12 hours.
That's ridiculous.
It's insane.
Very glad this existed this year, because I would have tried to do that.
That was 12 times. I'm like, wow.
They missed the rally of their rally, because their rally apparently was held about 7:30 at Times Square. Anybody go? Anybody go back to the other march?
No, I did not. I was exhausted.
I've done 45 of those things, mostly as a reporter, but I couldn't bear it. I could not bear it.
A bunch of us went dancing after, so that was really fun in celebration of
Well, let's talk about you all. I want to look, I was involved with the Christopher Street Liberation Day Committee when I was a kid. This was the group, volunteers, that planned the march, and we kept it fairly political and all that stuff. But then we kind of said, my God, there's so much to do. Do I want to spend all year just working on one event? So how did this get you so involved for a year, Bax?
Totally. So I actually found my way into this work through a different organization here in the city called MAC, the Metropolitan Anarchist Coordinating Council. And I met Gabriel, who's another organizer, at one of those meetings, and sort of heard about this and had seen it on Facebook. And I think the first meeting I came to actually was a big town hall that happened back in March, maybe? I'm not sure, but
what attracted you?
I think, for the first time since being in New York, I felt like the people who were in the room looked looked like what I think the world looks like and what I want the world to look like, and that there were actually people of a pretty wide cross-section of genders and races and classes and all of these things. And it was clear from that first meeting, there were problems, and there were that first meeting was far from perfect. And I think none of our meetings have been perfect. And there was tension, I think, and kind of sort of like sparks in the air. And I felt really drawn in a sense of, this is a space where things are happening, and there's not just a singular dominant voice, but there's actually potential for conversation and dialogue, and for people to change their minds basically in this room.
Yeah, I agree with that. I actually found the Reclaim Pride Coalition because I attend something called By Request, which is a group run by Paul Nocera, and he told me about what he was doing for the 50th anniversary of Pride, and he was saying it's really important that we're represented and that we take part in this march. And so I went to a meeting and I was like, this is what I want to do. And I'm a history nerd, and I love that this was the 50th anniversary, and just making this the most inclusive environment possible for people was what I wanted to do for my 50th anniversary, and that's what I will always remember and appreciate about this year.
I'm on the mailing list for Rise to Resist. When I can, I go to their activities, and I said there was this meeting happening on Wednesdays, and it took me a while to get there. I think my first meeting was in April, because at the time I was living in Brooklyn, and just getting back and forth just wasn't very convenient. But I moved to Manhattan in January after getting a lottery, a luxury apartment from the lottery, after having been homeless for 7 years. So I'm very happy about that. But at any rate, I came in April, and like I said, my schedule wouldn't allow it, but I said, I really need to be here because I'm so fed up with the other thing that this is where I want to put my energy and talent into, because this is something that I believe in. And as Bax was saying, just a whole cross-section of people in the room. It was just that this is a kind of community, it's a kind of world that I'm looking to build. I said, I want to be with this. So I was glad that and they said, we need someone to help Robert with the volunteers. And I thought, okay, I'll do it. Having no idea what I was volunteering to do. But the point is, I said, I'll take
you two?
No, I'm talking about Robert. There are multiple Roberts, yes.
Yeah, right. So I said, I had no idea, but the point is, I said, whatever it is, I'm going to do it. I've never done it before, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to do it, and it worked.
And you did it.
And we did it.
Yes.
And we did it. Yes, we did it.
So I first got involved in the Pride movement work a few years ago in 2017. I was in DC documenting the Equality March for Unity and Pride at the time. And that same year was when No Justice, No Pride blockaded the Pride Parade there. And so since then, I've been working closely with them. And then as soon as I heard that this was going on in DC or in New York, I knew that I wanted to be involved in some capacity. And so I came here and got involved earlier this year and have tried and did succeed in getting No Justice, No Pride involved in here at some capacity. But I would love to see that continuing on in the future as well.
You've raised one of the big controversies of Pride marches all over the world, really, is the participation of uniformed officers. Of course, the police department didn't used to let them participate in the Pride Parade, and then your lawyer, Norman Siegel, helped them get in uniform years ago. Right. And but now, look, I mean, Stonewall was about a rebellion against the police.
Absolutely.
Weak apology from the police commissioner this year, but not for everything that's happened since. Talk about what, and of course, I don't think police officers in uniform would have been allowed to march in our march, but talk about why it was so important not to have that presence.
It's because of what they're still doing today. We know people are still being killed. We've had the Black Lives Matter movement that's clearly shown, and to this very day, it might not be people marching in the streets in Black Lives Matter marches every day, but we still see the videos, and we know how police treat people of color, trans people, misgendering them, sexually assaulting them. We know how they treat sex workers. We know how all of these things happen. So to include police officers, regardless of their sexuality, in our march, and ignore the very real atrocities that they take part in, is not something that we wanted to be a part of.
And the most recent was Laylene.
Right.
I mean, that was just, I mean, this
Talk
is...
about who Laylene is.
I don't know enough, I guess, to talk about it.
No, this is so.
I'm happy to speak to it. Laylene Palenko Extravaganza was a Latinx trans woman here in the city who was arrested for a misdemeanor and held on, I believe, $500 cash bail.
That's correct.
While on Rikers Island, she was left in solitary confinement, despite the staff there knowing that she had a medical condition. While in solitary confinement, she died.
Okay.
And yeah, to echo what Francesca was saying, like the police arrested her, the police put her there, the police are responsible ultimately for her death.
Yes.
And she could be here with us, marching with us, were it not for the police. So it feels so viscerally wrong to me to welcome police into our march when they are killing people and preventing them from marching with us.
And I think her death accelerated the push in the state legislature to end cash bail for 90-something% of, which is, progress.
$500.
But a horrible price. But a horrible price.
How many people can't afford $500?
And why should people go to jail because they're poor?
Right.
This is actually this bill was one of the bills that Vocal had worked for some time, because many of our members were affected by that. Why should people go to jail just because they're poor?
If you want to house people so bad, build places for them to live. We're spending so much money on jails for what?
Thank you. Yes.
We can build much safer places for people to live and not criminalize poverty.
Right. Empty out the jails. Well, we now this march welcomed everybody basically, and politicians kept calling a lot of us and saying, "Oh, can I come?" And we said, "Do, but don't bring signs that say who you are. Right. Bring a sign for a cause or a cause that you care about." I think Dick Gottfried marched for health care, assembly member. But we did hear from Corey Johnson, the out gay speaker of the city council, about why he was there. Corey Johnson. If you can pull that up. Go, Corey. Please run, Corey.
Well, we're marching today, especially at the Queer Liberation March, because 50 years after Stonewall, it's still about the activist spirit. It's still about ensuring that the main message, which is about liberation, which is about fighting against injustice and racism every single day, that doesn't get lost in something bigger. And that can happen sometimes in the main parade. So today is really about getting back to our roots, and I am proud to be here with all of these amazing activists and New Yorkers to support this amazing Queer Liberation March.
One politician pulled me aside, who shall remain nameless, and said, "I don't know any of these people." I said, "Well, you need to get out more."
We are the people, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, absolutely.
And if we can, I would like to get to the clip, because I don't want to miss it, of Ann Northrop, one of the main organizers, who is my usual co-host on the show. I don't know how long it takes you to pull that up. I caught up with Ann maybe 2 hours into it, and here is what Ann had to say about her feelings about what happened.
Ann Northrop, we're just, it's only a couple of hours into the Queer Liberation March. What are you feeling now?
I'm thrilled. I'm tired. I've been up most nights. But it's beyond our wildest dreams. So I'm absolutely happy. It turned out exactly the way I wanted it to. Exceeded my expectations. But I have a few people I want to yell at who said, as we were doing this, "Oh, I don't think it matters if it's not so big." I'm going after them.
Good for you. Why'd you do this?
I so hate the Pride Parade and the fact that they have turned it over to a corporate party. It's disgusting. It is a criminal felony that they have given away the Pride Parade. So I want the experience for everyone that I always had, which was marching up the street and being inspired and empowered. There's so much creativity in this march. It's just spontaneous creativity. No one told anybody what to do, and they've all showed up with these magnificent, brilliant things, and that is action. And they will go home and they will do actions.
Doing it again next year?
Give me a minute to recover.
Well, let me first ask you, are we doing it again next year?
I guess that's to be determined at our next meetings. Right,
at, is it Sheridan Square, correct? We're meeting at Sheridan Square.
We're having
a meeting.
a town hall.
A town hall. Okay, a town hall.
Yes, I think it's at the People's Forum.
I believe it is People's Forum, 37.
Viewers of this show will get notified. But please watch. I know you're not having a meeting this week.
We'll
We're
post
taking
it
a
on our
break.
Facebook, information about
And I
that
think
meeting.
the 24th we're doing something. There's a meeting next week, but there's something going on at Sheridan Square on the 24th.
Okay.
Reclaim Pride Coalition NYC.
.org for more information.
For more information.
Yeah.
And let's put up that picture of my favorite sign. And actually, it got the most likes when I posted it on Facebook. Being gay is not a phase. Capitalism.
Oh, yes.
Indeed.
That got the most.
Yes,
that got
yes.
the most likes of all the pictures that I posted. And this is a rebellion against rainbow capitalism. Anybody want to take a shot at what that is?
I mean, it's companies saying that they support LGBT people and then donating millions of dollars to politicians that don't support our rights, or it's just acting in ways that hurt our community. And it's also, I think the reason why that sign got so much attention and so many likes is because capitalism isn't sustainable. Having, 1% of people in this country own more than 50% of the wealth, how are we supposed to survive in this world?
I think they said like 3 people hold more wealth than the bottom 50% wealth we're talking about. That means people's savings.
Right.
What
they pass on.
Of things.
The other thing is that it's called pinkwashing. It's just it's diluting. It's taking what we did and actually diluting it from the power that it had.
The companies wave a rainbow flag.
Exactly. Where are they the rest
show
of the
up
year?
and buy their way into this.
Yes, and where are
Then
they
you
the
can't
rest of the year?
critique them.
I heard a story that was also confirmed for me by a member of the United Federation of Teachers, because I'd heard it and I wasn't sure if it was true. They wanted to bring a bunch of high school students into the main parade, and they were told the fee would be $50,000. Did you hear this?
Yeah, I did.
No, I did not.
I asked somebody from the UFT about this, and they said yes, and that's why we're here at the Reclaim Pride Queer Liberation March.
Yeah.
I mean,
because they were forcing us to buy our way into that thing.
And see, that's not the spirit of Pride. That has nothing to do with queer liberation. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. That's buying your way in. I mean, what's up with that?
And what you said about the Human Rights Campaign will give you a 100% rating if you have nice policies protecting your employees, but they don't rate you on the campaign contributions you make that are destroying our rights.
The Gaglers at Google actually wrote a petition to the San Francisco Pride asking that Google not be allowed to march in the San Francisco Pride, because whenever they bring up issues around LGBT issues and things like that in the workplace, they get ignored. So for your LGBT employees to say you don't deserve to march in San Francisco Pride says everything that we need to know about rainbow capitalism.
That's what I used to say to Chuck Schumer all the time when he would show up. And he was bragging.
I know.
He says he was bragging about, I was the first senator ever to come to one of these things. And I would go up to him and I would say, you don't even support you voted against same-sex marriage and you don't support it now. What are you, not that it's the only issue, but what are you doing here? Now, late, and of course he came around on it, but come on.
Yeah, speaking to rainbow capitalism a bit more, I can't tell you the amount of storefronts that I pass by that have rainbows just plastered all over it. Sales 50% off, 75% off. And I think that's just a really great example as to how these corporations and companies are just trying to sell things to the community and to, perform this diversity rhetoric. But then when it comes down to the issues as to employing people within the community, giving us those jobs and decision-making abilities within those corporations, that they are not there for that either. And so I think that was also really important to this march, is ensuring that it was people-centered and issue-centered, and we got the word out there.
Someone told me that what is the vodka? One of the vodkas that was amazing.
They were the first ones.
And they were saying
that
on board. For alcoholics, that's very triggering. And I thought, damn, that's absolutely right. But all these all these things that are affecting our people. And he was saying, I can't deal with this because I'm triggered by all this. And I thought, I hadn't really thought about that before.
To speak to sort of the micro level of the rainbow capitalism, an interaction I had actually through Queer March's Instagram with a person who's asking about the timeline of our march and our events, and they said, I work down at this, I think it was like a restaurant or something down in Chelsea that has many rainbow flags around it, but they were like, I'm working on Saturday. I've asked my employer if I can get off, but they said I can't until 6 p.m. And so they weren't able to join us, unfortunately. But for me, that is a perfect encapsulation of what these brands' intentions are, is to wave this flag around and say, look how queer and trans friendly we are. But then when it comes to actually materially supporting the lives of queer and trans people and allowing them to participate in their own movement, they don't have the time of day for us.
If only Gilbert Baker, who was one of the main inventors of the rainbow flag, which has changed over the years, he never patented it. I don't know if you could patent a rainbow, but it's a shame because it could actually be a certification of something positive instead of somebody just appropriating it all the time, as they do. So do you have a sense that this might, you're not sure about next year, you're going to have meetings, but that it could be a tradition? Because after all, there have been a lot of split-off marches, the drag march, the dyke march, these things.
Trans Save Action.
All those things have happened.
Yeah.
Could this on the day?
I certainly hope so, and I think there's a lot of energy within the coalition as well that want it to continue and become something more. But we have gotten so many messages from around the world saying thank you for
People
doing
asking
this.
In Boston, will it come to Boston? Will it come to LA?
Are they going to change the way they do things?
So what I just wanted to say was we hope that we could do this again in New York City, but it was funny, before we did this, there were people reaching out to us in other cities asking if this would also happen in other cities, and our position was, you can start your own, of course you can use our our graphics, Bax made amazing graphics for our march this year.
Thank you.
So we want this to spread and we want this to grow. So we're open to the conversation. We're open to people volunteering and doing their own thing and bringing back the spirit of Stonewall.
And giving people an alternative.
Right.
Giving people an alternative that, an alternative.
There used to be 3 St. Patrick's marches in New York back in the 1800s because nobody could get along.
Okay.
Why not?
I think this weekend in London, actually, there's Pride events happening, and we were receiving messages earlier today from people who are organizing an alternative march who were here in New York, saw what happened, and said, this has to happen in London as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it's really great that people are looking to us and are excited and energized by what we did here in New York City. But I also think it's really important to remind people that they can do this in their own city too. They don't need us to do that, right? It's a matter of turning to your community and seeing where people are at. I'm sure that people are already doing amazing work in the community, and it's just about coming together, learning about what's being done, and producing something that is grassroots, because we also don't want to tell other communities necessarily how to do their own work.
Heritage of Pride, which runs the parade, says, but we have to have the corporations because, we need, I don't know, 10 million something more dollars, millions of dollars to run this. But you don't. This was done on a budget of under $200,000.
What did they do with it?
And
we raised all our money.
And it wouldn't have even been that high if, we didn't need a stage
The
and
rally,
a park.
yeah.
And
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it can be done. You don't need all these
What do they do with the money?
other things.
What do they do with it?
I don't know. The floats,
And what does it do for us?
Yeah.
But the real question is, what did this march do for us and you? In terms of how does it affect your participation in the movement and what you want to accomplish and all that? How does it all?
I think one of the really important parts of this march was the rally, because we had so many diverse speakers come and talk about the issues. I think a lot of people, especially young people,
There's a picture there of it. What does it say up at the top there?
none are free until all are free.
That's right.
Especially once you get out of college, everything you learn in your life after that is dependent on you. No one is forcing you to read a book. No one is making you read articles. No one is telling you to fact check things. And I think there's a lot of disinformation out there. And to have people who come from different backgrounds and are experts in what they're talking about, to talk about sex work, to talk about the fact that if you're a feminist and you think you're helping women, but you're not actually helping the women that can't afford to eat, that are discriminated in about 30 states for jobs, so that they need to go out there and do sex work. If you're not considering those women, what is your feminism? It's not enough. And I think that's a very important discussion that a lot of, I think maybe liberal women or liberal men might not want to have, but we had that discussion and we had people talking about a bunch of different issues, and so I think that was a very important part of the day.
So what else did people pick up at the rally? In terms of messages that inspired you?
Well, just before that, I think an important point to touch upon is that the success of the march without police and without corporations proves that this is possible.
You had 45,000, they had 150,000, big deal.
And there's that myth that police keep us safe did not happen, right? Like we marched all the way down to Central Park, 45,000 people, and everyone was okay. And so the barricades.
Well, I was exhausted.
And I would add, I think I heard from a lot of people that they had never felt safer in a space, that this was the first time they felt like actually included and like there were people there like taking care of them, basically.
Because we had amazing marshals who were trained in de-escalation, and we had medics, and we had people whose job it was to make sure people were safe and to make sure things were moving along smoothly.
It's also safer because when you have all those barricades on the sidelines and something happens to you, you can't get out. I mean, you can't. And how are you going to get to an ambulance or to a cab or just to get out of the thing?
That was really great.
So as far as the rally, I was very excited to see Miss Major give a few words at the beginning of it. We were lucky enough.
So say who Miss Major is for the benefit of the viewers.
Yeah, sure. So Miss Major is a Black trans activist who was at the night of the Stonewall riots.
And she's still alive.
Yes, she is.
She's San
Francisco or Oakland.
She's actually, I believe, in Arizona now. I may be wrong about the state, but I believe it's Arizona. And so we were lucky enough to speak with Miss Major a few weeks ago while she was in town. She wanted nothing to do with Pride this year, and hey, more power to her. But I'm glad that she was able to.
And the message was?
That she was all for what we were doing, the work that we're doing, and that she was very proud of us for doing this work.
And then there was Larry Kramer's speech. I've known Larry forever. I mean, he gave up and gave his Jeremiah, Old Testament speech about, I love you, you're the greatest people in the world, but you're not doing enough, and nobody's doing enough, and we're failing. And he especially thought we're failing on AIDS. We have a picture of Reginald T. Brown at the march with the AIDS is not over banner. Get it up there. Okay. And there was an emphasis on this. This is not over.
No, it's not over. And as a longtime survivor, I'm a living proof that it's not over. But also that we don't talk about that anymore. It's like something that's not talked about, and people are still going from HIV to AIDS. Why is that?
Well, a friend of mine who does AIDS ministry, a priest, did it in the early 80s and got totally exhausted by it, and they ran a film about that, and this was shown during this week, and a bunch of people came, and we're all, oh God, we have the basic, treatment for this and everything, and one woman got up and said, not for 35 million people who are infected around the world, is it who are not getting treatments.
And a lot of that has to do with, again, big pharma, charging. 3 of my medications cost more than $1,000 a month. These same medications can be gotten in Brazil and India for $3 a month.
I never understand why, this would be the most popular issue in the world to get this under control, and nothing is ever done about it.
It's all about money.
Can I ask the folks who have been involved in AIDS activism for a while, something that really stuck with me from Larry's speech was his assertion that he had failed and that the movement had failed. Do you have thoughts on that?
No, I don't agree because I'm here. I'm here because what ACT UP did 30 years ago was get medicine that's kept me alive. So and we now have PrEP, which will prevent it. So that it failed? No, it's not failing. There are people that are working every day for this. So to say I don't know, but Larry has always been very strident in his views. That's why, because I don't want to say anything. I don't want to disparage him because for what he did, for the things that he did. But there are people that are working now. So it has not failed. It has not failed.
But you are all part of a mass movement here. I mean, and which is what ACT UP was certainly in many ways. And you know, you look around the world. Now we're in a terrible political situation in this country. I think we can agree. In other countries, you see, like in Hong Kong, everybody getting out in the street and staying there, and you know, mass numbers. This happened in South Korea a couple of years ago to get rid of a president, etc. We had the big women's marches we've had, but it hasn't been as intense here. Do you feel up to really helping get us some regime change? Are we up for this?
Yes, I think a big part of this is a big part of what comes next is also what other things can we do to help our movements? Like, there are so many issues that fall under the LGBTQIATS plus umbrella. Black Lives Matter, healthcare, housing security, income, like food security, all of these issues. And it's about us going out there and making a difference, working to elect who we don't, someone else. And just all of those things are, I think, what part of our next steps are.
And one of the things are the concentration camps that people are now being held in. That's a rally that's going on now. That is going on now as of yesterday.
I think part of the success of Reclaim Pride more generally is that it's intersectional and it's coalitional. So we have people from all different experiences coming together. We certainly have difficult conversations within the meetings, but I think that's part of the struggle, right? It's part of the process of understanding. And through that, I know I can personally talk to myself as I've grown so much over the last few months being part of this movement. And so I think with that energy moving forward, it's only going to be even more positive.
And it had a sense of humor. I just want to run a brief clip of your colleague, Jake Tolan, who was guiding us as we went into the park. If you can bring that clip up, and directing us.
Yes, I remember that.
We are too large to fit on one road. Please, some people go west and some people go east. There is no going straight in this march.
Touche.
Right.
He looked great.
Yeah, he did.
Stunning.
It was fun. You know, you brought up history. This was a commemoration of the Stonewall Rebellion of 1969. Did participating in this, did it bring up anything for you about that? How do you felt all this related to that, and did it, you know?
Certainly. So on, I guess, the night of the 28th, myself and some friends wanted to be at Stonewall at 1 or 2 in the morning just to be for the actual 50th. And
was Lori Arbiter with you?
No, I saw Lori's action take place, which was really incredible. Before that happened, though, earlier in the evening, it was just what Stonewall has been for the last several weeks, which was sort of overcrowded with tourists, basically, taking pictures, and there was no sense of community. It all felt very in line with sort of the rainbow capitalism that's happening in the rest of the city. And so it was kind of a very deflating experience to have with these friends, to think, 50 years ago, this incredible revolutionary and liberating moment happened. And now we've come so far, but at the same time, that feels so incredibly distant to think that people could be in that space again, to actually be throwing bricks and taking to the streets. But then I think, for me at least, participating in the march on Sunday was sort of the opposite end of the emotional spectrum of, wait, no, this is possible, and we are part of a continuum that is unbroken from 50 years ago, from prior to 50 years ago, of queers who are standing up and taking to the streets and continuing to fight back.
And I'd like to take off from that, having been around 50 years ago. This is just another chapter in my story, that I've lived long enough to actually see all of you all. You're my legacy. I mean, when I think about it,
thanks, Dad.
The point is that what we did 50 years ago worked. It bloody worked. So for me, that's it's very emotional. It's just very, That it did. That.
And it's a long, long time.
Yeah.
Somebody pointed out this week that, all right, it's been 50 years since Stonewall. At the time of Stonewall, that was only 51 years after the end of World War I. That's how much history has gone by in that period. Of course, the Stonewall Board now has a JetBlue banner.
I was going to point that out, so I'm glad that you did.
The Brooklyn Brewing Company.
Please, folks, when you come to New York, it's not about, I mean, I'm not trying to hurt the Stonewall Bar. They do some nice events and things like that, and et cetera. Tree, the bartender, sometime bartender, was there at Stonewall originally. But the Stonewall Monument is not that bar.
Right.
It is the streets.
Yes,
it is the streets around it. And the religious right is petitioning the Trump administration to decertify it as a monument. They want that over. You know, that maybe he'll feel like he has to give that to them before next year, which he can do, because President Obama is the one who certified it.
Well, if he does, we'll fight back.
Yes.
Sorry to cut you off.
No problem. After we started marching, I realized I didn't see the Stonewall Inn, because the last 2 years that I was in the parade, I was like, I always pass by the Stonewall Inn and take a picture or whatever. And then I was like, it's not the Stonewall Inn that matters. It's the area, it's all these people, it's everything that you're doing. So it's like, I was like, I feel as happy as I did my first year walking past the Stonewall Inn. Like, it was amazing. So I think it's a feeling. Like, being at Stonewall it's a feeling. And it's an amazing one.
One of the big thing that this was about, and it was emphasized in the rally, was vulnerable, marginalized communities. Talk about what we ignore too much in our own community when we talk about these things, and what we're not doing enough about.
Trans women of color that are being murdered.
I think that the mainstream movement has really focused on marriage equality, which it's totally sure people should be able to get married if they want to, but that's certainly not the end goal. There are still so many people within the community, particularly Black, brown folks, trans folks, who have horrible material realities, right? They are unable to afford food, or don't have a place to be able to sleep, or don't have jobs, right? And I think that is where the center of this movement is trying to get to. We're trying to really put those voices at the forefront to make that difference, to be able to give them comfortable living situations on the daily. And I think that is a conversation that is totally missed when you have giant floats going down the avenue, right? And so that's really something that I wanted to make sure was focused on.
Another issue are all of the homeless LGBTQIA youth who've been thrown out of their homes by their families. We don't have enough beds for them. We have like maybe 200, 300 max for like maybe 25,000 people. For children, children. I mean, this is like Robert was saying, marriage equality. That's cute if that's what you want to do. But that's a luxury for some people,
right?
To be able to do that. But what about all these other issues of homelessness and just
40% of homeless youth are LGBTQIATS+, and so it's something very important that we need to consider. And Cecilia Gentili actually said it doesn't fucking get better for some people. And I think people want to be so dismissive and positive and everything's rainbows and happiness. How? Like,
not.
You need to lay out some plans and some actions for how it gets better, because just blanket saying that something's going to get better isn't fair to people who have not had that experience.
And I think like relying so much on the positivity is in some ways sort of like using what people refer to as like spiritual bypassing to avoid addressing like the material concerns of these people. To reiterate what other people have said, like in my life at least, I see people on Instagram every single day asking, primarily queer trans people of color, asking for money to pay their rent, to get medication that they need to stay alive, to eat, or to get a ride home so that they don't have to worry about getting attacked on the train or on the walk home. And
this is real.
And that, it's every day. It's every day. And the notion that people are like supporting our community by buying like some product that's been like covered in rainbows and all that money just like funnels into a corporation, but don't have the time of day to give $1, $5, $10 to a trans person who needs it to stay alive
to live, right.
is unfathomable.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I've been asked a few times now, like, okay, so what can I do to like get involved, or how can we support people all year round that's outside of Pride Month? And I think the best way to do that is to give your money to people who need it directly. As Bax just touched upon, I always see campaigns or even Venmo requests of like, hey, I need this money, you know, for like to do this specific task. And so instead of giving your money to the nonprofit industrial complex, I think the best way to do that all year round is to just give it directly to people who need it, because people know what they need, and that's the way to go.
Yes,
and I think sometimes people can feel uncomfortable with giving money away, but I grew up going to church. You're giving money away each Sunday. Why don't you help someone in need who's telling you exactly what they need?
Right. Who's right in front of you.
Exactly. And so I think that's another way you can really affect change in our communities.
And I think if we're going to be an anti-capitalist movement, yes, we have to like have this rhetoric and take on these corporations and take on, you know, the 1% who has all this wealth. But it's also about shifting our understanding of risk in so many ways, because capitalism wants you to think that ultimately you're alone, and that if something goes wrong in your life, you're going to have to deal with it on your own.
And that it's your fault.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Your fault. Yes.
But if we are actually interested in creating a community that cares for each other and cares for itself, then you need to be not just hoarding money on the off chance that something bad happens to you, but you need to be giving it to other people who need it today.
Absolutely.
So you've shown that there's a lot of great work that can be done outside of politics. Almost all that people seem to talk about on Facebook is like, who's going to be the next president? So it gets to be ridiculous. And we're coming, and we you know, this show will be seen on Independence Day in New York. I think we need a whole new system at this point. Really a whole new system. I mean, read the Declaration of Independence. You know, as flawed as it is, of course, because they still supported slavery and a lot of other terrible things, and it was all about property. But it says, when the system becomes intolerable, and you're obligated to put in a new system that will serve the people's needs. And when are we going to do that? Because electing a new president or even a new Senate and Congress is not going to do it all.
It won't change capitalism.
And it's almost impossible to do anyway. It's rigged against us.
Right, exactly.
The system. Well, on that note, I want to. So, are part of what you're all going to be involved in is going to be electoral stuff this coming year, or is it just going to keep working on the issues?
Yeah, but I'm, as you kind of touched on a little bit, I'm much more interested in transformative strategies. So,
give us some.
Well, I think one of them that we all touched upon a little bit is the idea that we can give our money directly to people and support people in different ways. And I think part of it is, so it's certainly a very big undertaking to think that we at this table are able to overthrow capitalism. And it's kind of scary, right, and daunting. But I think when we come together, that is something that we can create. It's a vision that we can develop and make it become reality eventually. But I think that there's still definitely a lot more work to be done as far as like politics and electoral stuff as well.
Well, there's Caban in Queens.
Yeah, that's Tiffany Caban, who describes herself as a queer Latina.
Yes,
was elected the district attorney at the age of 31 on a total reform agenda.
One of the most repressive,
County,
which used to be repressive DAs in the city, followed by the Bronx in terms of DAs, and with
the former one,
with the former one, right, the former one, and Ocasio. I mean, they just turned everything upside down. But see, that's what I see is, I'm excited about that, because these people ran on, they challenged the narrative. Yeah. They actually challenged the narrative and won.
Yes.
They're showing that people want change. And I think if there's a candidate or a person or policies that align with that, then that's where I want to be. And that's because I want to move this country further. I want us to be able to have the world that we created on Sunday. Like, that was the most amazing feeling, and I want to feel that every day.
I totally agree. I'm not at this moment super convinced that electoral politics are like the route to get there. But I think I really love what you just said, that we created this world on Sunday, and I think we have the potential to do that all the time.
Because the world we live in has been created.
Exactly.
The system that we're living in was created by somebody.
Right.
So as somebody, we can create a world that we want.
And to me, it's about sort of not trying to reform these violent institutions like the police, like the carceral state, but rather to destitute them and to say, you are not needed. We solve our problems inside of our community, and you are useless to us, basically.
And we almost never had the support of the courts in this country, although the biggest let's call it gay and transgender case that's coming before the Supreme Court, they announced this week, is going to be heard on October the 8th. One of them is a transgender case, two of them are gay cases, and they're going to decide whether these transgender and gay are covered sexual orientation and gender identity under the category of sex in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. There's a lot of news about this, and some conservatives are even saying it's possible to win it, but of course the court has been so corrupted by the Trump administration, by Mitch McConnell and all that. I mean, it's almost hard to have hope about it, and to pin it on that. We're going to have to do something else. We can't wait, because then But that is the big case that they are going to hear on October the 8th. Yes. And the other news this week, we're supposed to be a news show, we're supposed to give you some news, we've got 2 minutes and 27 seconds. The Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation announced, we want a constitutional amendment protecting sexual orientation and gender identity. They don't seem to have consulted anybody else. I don't imagine they asked Reclaim Pride.
I didn't get that memo.
I don't know whether they're using this to raise money. I mean, we don't even have an equal rights amendment that covers sex.
That covers women.
That's right.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm sorry, right, exactly. Yeah, exactly, right.
On the basis of sex.
Right.
Not what you do, but who you are.
Exactly.
That. All right. So we're down to our last 2 minutes. Final words from the Reclaim Pride Coalition, and reminding you that there is going to be a town hall meeting when?
On the 24th.
Yes.
Time, I assume, is 7 to 9.
ReclaimPrideNYC.org for more information about that.
Good call.
Okay. But other final thoughts about this week, and which I thank you for making happen.
As I told the young people that were marching behind the banner, I said, live in your complete authenticity, because without you, the universe is incomplete.
Yeah, I would just say thank you to the three of you, all of you who are in this room, and anyone else who participated. For me personally, it was like really magical and transformative experience, and I hope that I know that we gave that to a lot of people, and that is the result of the labor, particularly of folks who are sitting right here. So thank you.
I want to echo that. It was an amazing experience, and I just want to say to other people who feel like they're not seen or they're not heard, you can make yourself heard, you can make yourself seen. If you want something like this, make it happen, and we are all willing to talk about ways that we can do that.
Got your back.
Yeah, and for me, I'm really excited that we finished this sort of first big project of ours, and I'm really excited to see where we go from here. I feel like the possibilities are endless, and I look forward to that.
And we'll go out with, can you still run Chris Cooper's video while we're going out with running the credits over him? He's going to be my co-host next week. He was there as well.
So why am I marching today? Because the main Pride Parade has gotten very commercial, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, the commercialism means that we've been accepted and mainstreamed, which is going to happen. But I think it's also important that we go back to the roots of Stonewall, which is protest and fighting for the rights we still don't have.